Hello, viewers. Tonight, I would basically like to do a talking video, so to speak. I have noticed that I have gained quite a few subscribers, especially in regard to my Final Fantasy videos. So, I would like to explain what this channel is about. Basically, I talk about all sorts of issues. These videos are all unedited. There's no editing at all. Just one person basically doing a podcast style video. I had originally made this channel for the purpose of reviewing symbolism in Demon Souls. Eventually, that extended to doing quite a few videos about Elden Ring and the symbolism in that game. Symbolism as a subject, especially in regard to video games, but art in general, books, manga, what have ye, is very sparse, frankly. There are very few people who take that into account when they are reviewing media. And so, symbolism, for whatever reason, is something I've always been very interested in. That is a subject also has to do with what may be called the hidden, or the occult, or esoteric, so to speak. Because it is. There are many writers and artists, so to speak, who happen to hide many subtexts, so to speak, which a subtext is something, a meaning of a story that is hidden under, how should I say, different symbols, different narrative elements, what have they, that are just there, but you have to have a little bit of knowledge about what you are seeing to understand them. In other words, someone may put all manner of different symbolism in the story, but unless you know what it means, you might be confused about it. For a person who knows what something might mean, that is symbolizing, something in the story or a particular theme that you would not know about unless you knew the symbolism behind it. Whether that symbolism be an animal or even a color, even something simple as a color. All of that is very important in creating media. Pulp fiction magazines were very good at this, especially writers like basically the whole Lovecraft circle. H.P. Lovecraft, even before him, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P.'s friends, Robert E. Howard, and Clark Ashton Smith. They were all part of a whole movement, or you could call a movement of writers who were very skilled at symbolism. What many people do not know is that there are many video games, as well as movies, that employ a very vast array of symbolism. Now, you can consider that symbolism to be cultural, religious, societal. All manner of symbolism is employed, but nonetheless, I think people who have a good grasp of the subject can quite adequately affirm that there is symbolism used in a great deal of the media that we consume. And I think by understanding it, you yourself can understand different stories, whether they be like what I talk about on the channel, Final Fantasy VIII. That game I am talking about a great deal on my channel in regard to Renoa, Artemisia, the opening, the ending of it, all replete with symbolism. I do plan to do a great deal more work in that regard. Sometimes it may seem as though it takes me a while to basically create new videos for that series, but it is ongoing. It has not ended. I do plan to have a Reddit. I was planning to have a forum for Final Fantasy VIII, but I decided after a time of getting used to using Reddit, I now know that is the best option for me if I want to create anything related to the YouTube series, any type of YouTube series that I create, so that if I post information there, you can get it. If you need different sources, I can very easily post them there. I am citing a vast amount of books in sooth. If I say in sooth, I mean in truth. Sooth means truth. This is an English word. But basically, I will have, for anyone even now, if you ask in the comment section of this YouTube video or any YouTube video, for books that I'm using that you may see in any video pertaining to any subject, you can. I can get you those books. I can give you a PDF file of those books. Just about all of the books I cite from, I would say all of the books I cite from are digital. In other words, they're in digital format, so I can share them with you. And I will gladly share them with you. People have shared with me, very kind people, and I have no problem sharing with other people. In sooth, I am anti-copyright. I believe that copyright itself is sort of, ruinated. Or, I will put it this way. We have been sharing books anyhow, those of us who share books, like in PDF file, and all of those different file types on the internet. So I suppose really copyright really has not done much to affect the dissemination of information for those who know how to look and are not, anyhow, if you want a book, I will have a private link to it. I will give you that link probably by Catbox, which is a file sharing service that you can post, any type of file up there. If you want books that I cite from, just ask me. I will give them to you. You can put them on your computer. You can use that PDF. If you want a print copy, all you have to do is basically go to a print shop. I wonder if my recording software is on. All right, my recording software is on, so I'm not I'm just talking and not recording. For whatever reason, I thought of that. But anyhow, yes, if you go to a print shop website, they can print and ship your PDF into book format. Quite frankly, and they can bind it up, send you a whole, printed book that you can read. All right. Those services are very good. I would say that if you want to read in print, you certainly can with PDF type books. All you have to do is just send that in, and you can get a whole book printed for a fairly good cost. And I believe I had basically used that service, what was it, a couple years ago? It has been a long time. But basically, it was affordable then. It probably is still affordable now. We have those services in the United States. If you live in other countries, I'm sure that hopefully there are similar services. I will put it that way. Now, what I also do in addition to videos about symbolism happen to be cultural videos. Videos having to do with some particular scandals, some particular cultural things, especially in regard to social status, things of that sort. I also do religious videos. I have been doing a video about Miguel de Molinos, who was basically had wrote a very interesting book about prayer. But I have to say that many of my videos that have to do with religion, you will see many of them are critique videos. And at some point I started to do videos about the ministry of the Lamb, For whatever reason, I had many Christians who were very interested in that, but for whatever reason, when I did this new, quiet prayer series, I have noticed that about, praying and also, history and Miguel de Molinos, it seemeth as though a great deal of Christians, it would seem seemingly Christians who have subscribed, they do not seem so interested in that, so I have sort of taken a break from that. I have been making more videos related to Final Fantasy VIII because that is what people are watching. And so there may be people say, well, I didn't subscribe for this, I didn't subscribe to watch this, but people are watching the Final Fantasy VIII videos. People are watching them. I have subscribers who subscribed, for religious videos, but it seems as though, and I do not want to mischaracterize anyone, there are a lot of people who subscribed, either they subscribe from the Ministry of the Land videos or what have they. I think some people just wanted to see me criticize some people, and they didn't think I would really, get to the, the substance of teaching anything substantial, which I like history, I like learning things. I do not particularly like critiquing people, but if anyone has watched my critiques, you will notice that whilst I critique, I also teach. But that has been somewhat annoying. I have to say that I have enjoyed making these Final Fantasy VIII videos, these videos about this old game, because it was something that I had experienced. And it was something I had very strong memories about. I mean, out of all of the Final Fantasy games I can remember, Final Fantasy VIII, it was not a game I really understood well at the time. But I did, there were some mysteries in that game. And for those of you who do not know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to extrapolate too much because maybe you will play it. Not to say that spoiling it is all that much of a problem for me, because as far as I'm concerned, it is so old that if you know about it, you know about it. You've probably played it by now. But I have to say that that game was full of mysteries and symbolism, and I do have a very good, I am planning to make a very interesting symbolism video very soon about Final Fantasy VIII. What I'm going to talk about in that video is going to help your understanding of the story. Many people have a hard time understanding the story. Some people, like myself, they already have the belief that Rinoa is Artemisia. They have already seen enough. But I like to go into a story, me knowing that and me believing that, that is good. But I still want to know more about the story, so I've been learning more, and I would like to share that with you in the coming video. So, yes, I mean, when it comes to me making videos, for any of you who have subscribed to this channel for a long period of time, if not too many people are watching the video, I cannot say that I necessarily become too discouraged, though at some points it does discourage me. So if I start making videos about different subjects, please do not be surprised. I will do that, because if I see hardly anyone is watching them, even if it's just one person who watches the video, I just say, maybe I should make another video about the subject. But if no one's watching, then, if no one is even watching them straight through, then I kind of feel, I might as well just talk about something else. And so, frankly, even regarding the Quiet Prayer series, I've still been making those. I've made about 2 episodes of that, and I have to say that that I do enjoy making them, but at the same time, I already know but hardly anyone's watching them. So most of the time, I've been really focusing my attention on making the videos about Final Fantasy VIII, because this is something I know a lot about. I can speak upon it. I know some, people who may subscribe to me may think they do not like video games. They do not want to play about video game. They do not want to play video games or talk about them. But on my channel, since I talk about so many subjects, you will have to pick and choose what you want, because I think anyone who has subscribed to my channel for a long time, you already know that I talk about a variety of subjects, and because of that I have a variety of subscribers. I have subscribers from different videos. This is being made as a more of a casual channel, more of an OBS type commentary channel, essentially. And so, you know, because of that, this is, you know, if people decide, you know, we don't want to cut notifications on our watch, then I just have to do, you know, what people will watch. Let me put it that way. And so I'm basically going to I'm going to continue this trend of doing Final Fantasy VIII videos for a while. I will make other types of videos, but for those of you who are somewhat confused, this is why. You know, you just have to pick and choose, because I am still making religious videos. I'm still making videos about culture. I'm still making videos about, you know, different happenings in the world. I still plan to. Let me put it that way. I made basically a whole series about blackface in Japan. Okay, about, you know, what is his name? Commodore Perry. You know, the ships they took to Japan and a lot of those cultural and historical things. I've done that. So those videos are there for those people who want to watch them, and there will be more, but ultimately I have to have some type of, you know, some videos I can depend on for, you know, that I know people will come and watch them. I just need some type of video. So, you know, Final Fantasy VIII is something I know a lot about. A huge amount about. I know, you know, that as a game, most people will be interested in that game, or usually older people. I have noticed that I have a high male demographic regarding Final Fantasy VIII videos, but that is all right. Though then again, I really do not totally believe statistics in regard to you know, YouTube statistics. I really do not know how accurate they are, to be entirely honest. For one thing, I would not know how they would know who is a man or who is a woman, so there's that. Regarding Elden Ring, I am still playing it, believe it or not. Night Rain looks very interesting. Personally, not to really get into some very long lore discussion, but I think it seems to me that Night Rain, as in regard to lore, it seems to me this is what happens if you're tarnished. If you choose the Ranni ending and to side with Ranni, this is the night, so to speak, in my opinion. This is what happens if Ranni wins. Because it really does not make sense otherwise. What other ending would cause a Night Rain? So I think that I'd already said that Ranni was a villain, and people did not believe me, but here is Night Rain. And I think, you know, that particular DLC in Elden Ring is sort of the Ranni quest line expanded, in a sense, except you have these, you know, what they call Nightfarers or whatever they're called. It looks like a very good co-op game. From everything I've seen, I think it looks more fun than Fortnite, than PUBG, or any of these different types of of that genre. I think that Night Rain could get really big, and I think it will. Everything that FromSoft does is very economical. They know how to save money. They know how to make a game and essentially use minimal resources to achieve a very good result. And I think that is something that is lost in a lot of game companies. Many game companies of that level of prestige, especially these AAA game companies, they usually spend a lot of money, but the result they get is not so good. And I think those people at FromSoft, they have gotten in a very good habit of basically making, very risk-averse products that are still good. I mean, in other words, they do not take many risks. I mean, you're still reusing assets. So, in a sense, they're sort of venturing from the original Dark Souls Elden Ring formula, but at the same time are doing something new with the same assets. So that to me is amazing. They're literally going into Fortnite territory, and they have nothing to lose, because with the same battle system and just expanding upon it, and giving the players extra features. Doing that, I think, is just quite stunning. People are going to love it. I know people already love the network test. So what else should I be talking about? I do want to talk about the two men. Another man of the black social status died in a correctional center. Basically killed by the police officers there, or whatever you call those workers who work in there. But basically, that is something I would like to talk about, another cultural issue I would like to talk about. Now I wonder, what else am I planning? Let me see. As far as religious videos, it's just quiet prayer videos. But as I said, in regard to Final Fantasy VIII, I have a big symbolism video planned for that. I have to say, the religious videos, from what I've seen regarding views, whatever subscribers I have that, basically subscribe to me for the religious videos, for whatever reason, they aren't really looking at those. As I said, I mean, I thought, I know I got a few videos from my Christian videos, but not too many people are interested in that. And I think basically I was doing a lot of videos on people, and I think there are a lot of people who are more dramatic than they might admit. Let me put it that way. And I cannot really say that is necessarily a bad thing, but I just think interesting. I mean, let me put it that way. So, essentially, if it takes me time to create another religious-oriented video, then you will just have to wait, because I'm hardly getting any views on the Quiet Prayer series. This is why those are, I'm basically taking my time. I am doing videos about video games. There was another thing I used to also do. I used to read manga. I used to basically do manga reviews. I was doing Claymore and then Uncle from Another World. With my way of doing manga videos, many people just do a manga review. For me, a manga review is not good enough for me. I really do not like just doing a manga review. So what I will do is just read the manga out loud. And just do a video about it. And as I'm reading, I will give commentary. I'll say, wait, look at this. That is, as like when I'm reading Claymore and I see that, Claire comes into walks into the village and says, basically does the job, and then says to the villagers, oh, don't give me the money. When they hand her the money, she says, oh, pay the man in black. And this thing happens over and over and over and over again, at least 2, 3, or 4 times. And I'm thinking that is so repetitive. And when I am reading it, right to you, and you can go to chapter 1, you can go to chapter 2 and see me read it myself, I can essentially, you can see how repetitive something is in the manga. So I really like that. I am not a person who does review videos. I think those are, to me, that is not my style. I like to just read it. I'm thinking, why am I talking about the manga to you when I can just read it on my channel? Alright, now in regard to manga channels, I have to say, videos that I've done, sure, they've gotten a fair deal of views. Often not many, so, I did slow down regarding those because Claymore as a manga was pretty, to me, the writing is terrible. It's very uninnovative manga, in my opinion. I have some problems with it. I did have a few subscribers who apparently liked it, but I just slowed down. And maybe at some point I will read more. I will do more Claymore videos, but for now, I am sort of pausing, my progress in that regard. Now, in regard to Uncle from Another World, I sort of paused that too because, to me, and that was a more interesting manga, but manga videos are just, I don't know. It takes a lot of confidence to read something out loud, to do little voices and so forth, but the more I talk, maybe I will get better, and I've been talking for a long time, so. But I have noticed that the more I do this, the more confident I become, so. Yes, I think that you can expect some different things from me. It's going to be mixed, but I think for those of you who subscribe for the Final Fantasy VIII videos, right now you are going to receive a bit more videos about that subject. As I've said, I have so much to talk about regarding Final Fantasy VIII that, in sooth, it is almost as though I have too much to talk about. I have so much. I do not know what to talk about because I have so many subjects. I could talk about different types of symbolism. I could talk about Cypher. I still have not basically reviewed all of the game footage with all of you. So, frankly, that is going to be a wellspring of content. It is just going to be constantly reviewing different things in the game. All, these things, of course, very related to Renoa and Artemisia. And so, because of this, I just have to say this is not going to... No, I have plenty more to talk about. I have so much that, if you subscribe for that, then good decision, because I still have so much more to say. You came to a man who, quite frankly, has a very deep knowledge of symbolism, and basically hidden things, occult things, and stories. I would even go so far as to say that I specialize in that sort of thing. As well as I am helped by other people too. The work of other people has helped me a vast deal. Regarding Final Fantasy VIII, for those of you who do not know, I always say this. Of course, those of you who are watching this video, you're probably already subscribers or you're just long-time viewers, but Yoshinori Katase retracted his statement about Artemisia not being Renoa. He did it about, 6 years ago? Could be 7 now. I have no idea. But basically, it was when he was doing an interview about the city NT. And he just said it. So they asked him a question. He just said, I retract that statement. He said, maybe she is, because we had 3 writers. I cannot speak for every single writer and speak to all of the context regarding the characters. He just simply could not. So, that explains all any of us need to know. I mean, Nojima, apparently there have been fans harassing Nojima. You know, Nojima does not even want to speak to people. That is how bad fans have hounded him. And he just wants to work in peace. And the problem is that people have sort of annoyed him to the point where he does not even want to talk about stories regarding Final Fantasy games. So, in a sense, all of this is good. We can read and learn and sort of, you know, in a sense, I kind of think of Final Fantasy 8, 7, and 9. And those Final Fantasy games sort of, I mean, they're all type of book-like. I remember when I was growing up, they helped me read a good deal because it was one of those things that, to me, was interesting and interactive. But at the same time, I had to read it. And it was, you know, it was before, you know, Final Fantasy X. I have a big history of Final Fantasy. But in particular, those 3 games. Now, regarding Final Fantasy IX, I do not like Final Fantasy IX for one reason. I would like Final Fantasy IX. I would if I won the game, I think at least a few times. But the reason I do not like Final Fantasy IX is because of Beatrix. But there's always one or two things in those games, and all of those, you know, linear games that make me annoyed. And I think that is one of the problems I have with linear games, linear RPG games. There are some choices that I, as a player, would like to have. For example, you know, who to romance. Regarding Final Fantasy VIII, I play the game. Quistis is literally throwing herself at Squall, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, if I could only choose to romance Quistis instead of Rinoa, wow, that would be really innovative, right? But no, it's a linear game, so you cannot do that. But you see, before, you know, I think in that time period in the 90s, you know, and before the 90s, it was sort of a thing that you kind of expected your game to be linear. I think today, one of the problems with Final Fantasy games today, in my opinion, is that they have not innovated in the places they need to. Everyone talks about the battle system, but really, I think if you want to make the games non-linear, you know, and, you know, keep a lot of the classical things and basically sort of give the player more choice in very, you know, interesting ways and make the game more interactive. I think that, you know, Final Fantasy, you know, as a series would benefit from it. And that may seem like an unpopular opinion, but I think I would even be open to a Final Fantasy VIII remake. If they said, you know, we have an idea. Let's make this game a little less linear. Let's give you an opportunity to romance Quistis if you want to at the beginning of the game. Or something like that. And just, you know, even if they did something limited where they say, okay, you can romance Quistis, but you have to do a certain thing at the beginning of the game. You know, that would make it interesting to the point where I would say, you know, let me replay this, because now I want to romance Quistis. Let's say you give, you know, if you remade these games, let's say you have the normal ending that you get, and then you can have different endings. But, you know, we already know they'll never do that. They will never do that. They do their remakes in a certain type of way where it is almost as though, alright, we have to change the game. We have to change it and just not add on to it. And I think, honestly, you don't have to change the whole, you know, you don't even have to change the script of the game if you don't want to. But essentially, if they were to make, you know, if they were to remake a game and make it non-linear in certain ways, and basically expand it where, okay, you want to do some different things in this remake, you can. But they're still linear. And the problem, I think, is, you know, people talk about the battle system, but I really think that the battle system, even in the time-based battle systems, let me put it this way, I really don't think the battle system was anything, you know, special. Let me put it that way. There were a lot of games that were time turn-based battle systems. I can talk about Legend of the Dragoon. I can talk about all different types. But there was some that made Final Fantasy unique, and it was the aesthetic and the story. It was the art style and the story. And I think back in those days, in the 90s, and before then, making a purely linear story was, that was something, that was just what was done. I mean, for the most part, there were games that were not linear, of course, frankly, but basically, there were very few. Let me put it that way. I mean, with Final Fantasy, it's very thematic, but at the same time, what and I think that was great for the early ones. But I think now that we are in 2024, and even after that, when they got to the point where, Final Fantasy X-2 has about, and I think Final Fantasy X-2 was the only true sequel. I mean, you had other ones, 13-2. You had Lightning Returns, and they were interesting sequels, but I think the problem with those was that, in my opinion, they were not as complete as Final Fantasy X-2 was, and I think in some ways, Final Fantasy X-2 is even more interesting than Final Fantasy X, but that's just my opinion. I think if you were to do a main game that had multiple endings, and you made that innovative in some way, I think that would be very interesting for the players. Because personally, a lot of people do not like to talk about this, but one of the reasons those games, from the 90s they had such high replay value was because you had to read everything out. They took a long time. Even if you did not really, even if it really did not present you with any other challenge than the challenge you've already beaten, and you just have to do it over again and fight the same bosses in the same way over again, and there's really hardly anything you can do different. A lot of people would replay those games just to read everything again and just to experience it again because it was so long. It's Final Fantasy VII is 3 discs. Final Fantasy VIII is 4 discs. Final Fantasy IX is 4 discs. And so a lot of us, we just played the games. I mean, we would come back maybe a month later and play the game over again, even if we won it. Okay? And, that was how it was. But as far as replay value in regard to, alright, I'm replaying the game because there's another ending in the game. That will increase replay value. That will increase the money. That will increase the value for your money. And I think it's pretty obvious now that, and I think it was pretty obvious, when Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns was made, as well as Final Fantasy, even before then, Final Fantasy X-2 had released. Having a new game plus was revolutionary. There were a lot of things I liked about Final Fantasy X-2. It was a very fresh and interesting game, and as an experience, I mean, there were just things about it that I just said, I really like the way this game was made. I mean, sure, it has the Charlie's Angels aesthetic. I mean, you have girls who dress in little outfits and they, fight battles, but I mean, to me, it was amazing because of just how economical it was. And I really, as a player, I can respect knowing how much money is spent, especially in the modern game market, how they just use the same areas, how they just use the same, basically graphical, engine or whatever. They use the same assets, but they used them well. They used them effectively. And I thought, wow, they even expanded upon what they already had in the game. So it was just essentially a bigger game to an extent. Not in all cases, because there were certain areas in the game that you couldn't really see. I mean, that you went to before. Like Bodge Temple, and I think that's the name of it. And the temple in the Calmlands. Or I think it's called the Calmlands. But anyhow, that was pretty interesting. Alright? very interesting to me. So, I mean, I think my opinion about Final Fantasy X-2 is somewhat unpopular because I enjoyed Final Fantasy X-2 more than I did Final Fantasy X, and I would say Final Fantasy X-2 is probably my favorite. Now, why is Final Fantasy X-2 my favorite? Because it has good replay value. I am one of those people who likes to replay a game over and over again. I like to get my money's worth. If I pay even $40 for a game, which before, for PlayStation 1, that was the price of a new game. For PlayStation 2, the price of a new game was $50. I still remember it today. Even though I did not have Final Fantasy X-2 International Edition, what I got was so good and amazing that, I think I can vouch for anyone who really enjoyed Final Fantasy X-2 when I say that was like the perfect game to us, in regard to endings. Because you had a good ending, you had a bad ending, I think, and you had a perfect ending. And that's when you get to bring Titus back into the world. Now, would you believe, and I know some people do, that there were some people at Square Enix who wanted to create Final Fantasy X-3 and make, I think they wanted to make Titus into a guy who basically mirrored his father in regard to just, his actions. I think they wanted him to cheat on Yuna with someone else. And apparently Yuna was going to make Titus jealous by going with some other guy. I mean, it was very interesting. I don't know what to say. But this is how companies ruin things. This is why I say, for the most part, I do not like remakes unless under special circumstances where they can say, wait, we're going to remain faithful to the original. We're going to keep our changes to a minimal. If anything, personally, I would hope, don't make any aesthetic changes like censoring things, like they did in the Final Fantasy VIII remaster. But nonetheless, we see what has happened to Final Fantasy VII as a remake. Final Fantasy VII as a remake is just, it is less substantial on an emotional level. And, there's just certain things about, like Dyne, the friend of Barrett's friend, he was supposed to submit self-murder in the original game. He did that in the original game. When we play Final Fantasy VII Remake, he's killed by Shinra soldiers, and that was awfully, there's no emotional impact because he's depressed. He's not mentally well, and so he decides, I'm just going to take myself, which he did after the fight with Barrett, because Barrett tells him, hey, Marlene's alive and so forth, but that was not enough for him. He just has too much guilt after what he's done, and he just feels like he has nothing to live for. But it was interesting. It was very painful and powerful emotionally. But as I said many times before, Hironobu Sakaguchi is gone from Square Enix. He's not part of this, new company merger. Squaresoft was really amazing. And I have to say that, to me, it's just a real travesty. When he created that movie, Final Fantasy Spirits Within, personally, I didn't think the movie was that bad, especially when you consider the graphical fidelity of that movie. Even if you look at it today, it's pretty amazing. What they did with their technology at the time, that kind of put Squaresoft, in a sense, in the cutting edge of technology. It was a movie with graphics back in that time. And that time it was amazing. And that was why he didn't really work on Final Fantasy VIII. But what his writers did, I still think that they were trying to emulate the mystery of Final Fantasy VII, but it spanned upon, the quality of the mystery. In other words, in Final Fantasy VIII, I mean, there are many things that are so symbolic that you have to have, and you have to have some knowledge of symbolism to understand them. They literally have a magazine in the game called Occult Fan Magazine, and I really want to talk about that more in my coming videos, and some other things pertaining to the game, hiding things, because they're very outright, in how they talk about things in the game. Excuse me, or there are a few things that indicate, we're hiding things in this narrative. We have symbols. We're making a heavy use of symbols in this narrative. We're putting things intentionally in the narrative, and we want you to figure them out. We want you to think about them. And to me, that is a story that respects me as a player, as a reader, because you have to remember, in Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, you're reading everything. Now, I did say that I did not like Final Fantasy 9 because of Beatrix, and the reason I don't like it is because she beats us. I remember when I first, because I was not prepared for the Beatrix fight, and so maybe that was what had really annoyed me about losing to Beatrix. So Beatrix beats me, so I come up, this woman comes out of nowhere, and basically decides, hey, I'm going to fight you. And she does, and she basically kills my whole party, Zidane and all of them. Zidane and all of them. And I'm thinking, this horrible little, oh my goodness, I really don't like this woman. So I decide, I'm not going to get beaten by a woman again. That was a personal thing for me, at the time. I was a little boy. And so, you know what, I'm gonna really grind. I'm gonna really, I have my ogre weapon, the ogre twin blade that Zidane can get. And I was just out there roaming the overworld, getting in the fights so that I could, level up and, get different abilities and do different things like that. And so I made my character really strong. I said, I'm going to win this time. And so I win, but then she uses Shim Hazard and just destroys the whole party. And I thought, oh my goodness, I really don't like this game now. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to beat her at some point. And I think we have, 2 more battles with her, throughout the story. And every fight we go in, she just wins. And Garnet, or whatever her name, Dagger is what she's renamed as. I think she talked to her, the party talks to her and said, hey, you have to stop fighting us and join forces with us. But I'm thinking we never really beat her. And that's what annoys me about her, because the whole idea is that, oh, she's so much tougher than you. I'm thinking, okay, why doesn't she just... she doesn't even have trance, the special ability that your characters get. But the same, she's still better than you, and I'm thinking, get out of here. Get out of here. I don't respect Beatrix, and I don't respect Queen Brane, or whatever her name is, because of the fact that, to me, the people of Limblum, should go to war with Alexandria, after the game. There should be a part 2 or something to it, because to me, I cannot be satisfied with that. I'm just thinking, we tried to fight this woman. She just comes in with her sword, uses Shim Hazard, stock break, and all types of dumb abilities. I'm thinking, in order to get Shim Hazard from a sword, you have to do so many quests. You have to do so much to get the sword Excalibur. Okay, it's ridiculous. I'm just thinking, wow. People thought Dark Souls was bad. This man put a time limit on how to get Excalibur in Final Fantasy 9 for Steiner. So this is ridiculous. This man... But Hironobu Sakaguchi was like that. Whoever these people were, they don't do Final Fantasy games like that anymore. Things were difficult back then, and things could get hard. There was Ozma. Not to say Final Fantasy was really that hard of a game, because, it was not really hard from a difficulty standpoint. A lot of things were difficult, but, a lot of the things that were difficult were in many cases, mini games, like, the jump rope. And different things like that. Those things. But it was just an overall interesting game to experience and read. And I honestly think the originals are, I have better memories of them than the remasters. When they start censoring the remaster of Final Fantasy VIII, I just said, this is terrible. This is terrible. To me, I just think that's such a small thing. Just just leave it alone. You've already released it on Steam with no censorship. But you see, the newer version has to have censorship, so, okay. I mean, I just do not like censorship, but, yes, so that is why I do not like and often do not play Final Fantasy IX. I will play Final Fantasy 7 and 8. And I have to say, regarding the least objectionable Final Fantasy, in my view, is Final Fantasy 7. It is kind of sad that Aeris dies in the original Final Fantasy 7, but I still like it. And what I like about it is that there's a lot of closure in that game in regard to... Well, I would say there's not so much closure. But at the same time, it is not like Final Fantasy 7 Remake, where they just have to change everything in it. I mean, it's just... things just... I mean... And it is not like the spin-off titles like Crisis Core and all of that. I mean, we did not need to know any more about Zack and Aeris. The idea is Aeris can finally die and meet Zack in the Promised Land or wherever. I mean, that's what they call it. Basically, they can be together again, in a sense. I mean, that's sort of a very sad way to look at it, but I mean, it's just truth. It's very sad when you think about it. And the very fact that you have to go back in order to get the flashback with Zack is amazing. I mean, it was very emotional stuff back then, and Crisis Core was not needed. Square Enix does a lot of things to really destroy the integrity of their old games and make them into basically things that are not really... They're not really mature stories. They're not really good stories. Let me put it that way. I mean, when I was, what was it, 12 or 11 or whenever I was playing these games, it was an amazing experience. Let me tell you. And I have to say, for those of you who did not expect me to be talking about Final Fantasy this much on this channel, well, too bad, because I'm just going to do it. Because, I mean, this was a big part of my childhood. It really was. So, for me, I mean, that was substantial. That affected my whole life in regard to... Because, let me put it this way. My father, during that time, was not a very active father, so to speak, in regard to teaching me much, or, giving me very much in the way of instruction, or teaching me how to be a man, or anything like that. I mean, he was kind when he was older. I'm the youngest child, and my parents were older when they had me. Okay? And so, because of this, I was a bit, I mean, my father's a bit older. My parents, they're not really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, most of the time the mothers are more interested in really, having serious conversations with the girls. Not to say I didn't have serious conversations with my mother, but it's just that let me put it this way, I spent a lot of time as a young boy in my room playing Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And to some extent, other games like Final Fantasy 1 and 2, and eventually when I got a computer and I was able to use emulators, I was playing Final Fantasy 5 and eventually 6. Okay, but mostly when I had a PlayStation, it was Final Fantasy 6, 7, it was Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. When I had the PlayStation, it was those ones. They were so long. I mean, can you imagine being, even today, even by today's standards, a 3 or 4 disc game is pretty big, when you consider how much writing and reading you had to do in it. It was pretty substantial, let me say that, and all of the hidden things in those games. I mean, those were big games. I spent a lot of time reading character dialogue, all of those things. Just playing the game, and it's all reading. And so for a boy my age, I really didn't particularly do too much reading. But it seemed as though I copied a lot of mannerisms, from many of the characters I saw. I absorbed a good deal of, I suppose you could call it, culture from those games. And you could say that in a sense, a lot of that rubbed off on me. I mean, whether you can call it a good or bad way, I really do not know. But for the most part, back then, many kids have problems with attention, even today, of course, especially with TikTok and phones. But, for me, that was me sitting down for hours reading as the characters talk to each other, playing that game for a very long time, and it really affected me. But Final Fantasy VIII affected me the most. And so I keep coming back to that. And so on this channel, this is sort of for the occult fans, the ones who say, we're looking for the narrative influences in the story. We're looking for the hidden things in the story. And I do plan to talk a great deal more about that. I suppose that maybe I've said enough. I could talk for a very long time. Anyhow, viewers, may you be blessed, and farewell. Before I go, I'd like to say that I may do these talking videos more often. They probably will not get many views. I honestly have no idea. There's pretty scenery here, pretty nature, royalty free. A man uploaded this to his channel, said anybody can use it, he does not care. Very nice river, I like it. I may use it in more commentary videos, vlogs, so to speak. But anyhow, you can expect to hear me, so to speak, because you can't see me. You can expect to, have a new video from me at some point. It might most likely be a Final Fantasy VIII video. This was somewhat enjoyable, I suppose. As I said, may you be blessed. Fare ye well. Okay. I don't have my mouse hooked up. Anyhow, yes.